Just a short time ago, James White, the creator of Flesh and Blood, dropped an article on the official website about new changes to the Living Legends system. The purpose of this system, as he states, is to recognize sustained excellence of heroes and elegantly evolve the metagame over time. Put simply, the Living Legends system is essentially a soft rotation for an otherwise non-rotating game. Every card and set that has ever been printed in Flesh and Blood is legal in both the Classic Constructed and Blitz formats, barring banned cards of course, with the ultimate exception being heroes that have hit Living Legend status for their respective format. However, one problem that has arisen with this system is that the amount of points that are allocated for each event has seemingly been too much, and so heroes are starting to reach Living Legend status far quicker than LSS intended them to. We have already seen 3 heroes be yeeted from Classic Constructed, which is Flesh and Blood's premier competitive format. And so James and LSS have brought us, the players, some changes to ensure that we get to play our favorite heroes for just a little longer before they inevitably sunset. But can I just say, why did you wait until Briar was about to LL? Like, you let Prism go, but you're letting Rosetta Thorn stay in the format? Are you kidding me? You're gonna do my girl dirty like that, but you're gonna let this degenerate bullshit exist in the game? I'll never forgive you, James.
Huge thank you to all of my supporters. If you'd like to join the Chad Army, you can either become a channel member or join my Patreon with the link in the description. And if it's cards you want, you can use my affiliate link to Red Riot Games to help support me as well.
Okay, so to quickly explain the Living Legends system to those who might not be familiar with it, competitive events ranging from ProQuest and Road to Nationals all the way to the World Championships offer points to the hero that came in first place. To reach Living Legend, a hero needs 1,000 points in Classic Constructed and 500 points in Blitz. When a hero hits this threshold, they are officially banned from the format at the start of the next banned and restricted update. And when a hero goes, so does their signature weapon, although all of the cards, including specializations, are still technically legal for play. Now, I've been on the record for saying that I like this system, and I still do. However, it was becoming very clear that heroes were leaving a little too quickly, with maybe the exception of Starvo, because, I mean, screw Starvo, am I right? But luckily, LSS is on the ball, and they are now adjusting the Living Legend status based around 4 key factors that James outlined in his article, being the number of events in a given year, how many heroes are currently legal, how many new heroes will be made that year, and what a good hero lifespan is. Now, if you want a bit more information on each of these factors, I will link the article in the description down below, which is just right past that subscribe button.
Got it!
Now, the first 3 points are pretty straightforward, but the most interesting one is the hero lifespan. James says that his ideal lifespan for a hero is about 15 to 20 months, which is roughly a year and a half to 2 years, which would put the best heroes at a 20 to 25% win rate, at least according to their numbers. Don't ask me how they got those numbers though, because I'm more of a meth guy than a math guy, if you get what I'm meaning.
I do drugs.
And so LSS has adjusted the amount of points that they allocate for each of their competitive events. James also states that the amount of points given are inevitable to change in the future, which makes a lot of sense. For instance, if there's more competitive events next year than there were this year, it would make sense that each of those events would give a little bit less points to make up for the fact that there are more of them. Now, there are people who do not like the Living Legend system, and they would prefer that the game just be fully non-rotational. And this is fair and understandable. However, I would argue that having a soft rotation system like we have in Flesh and Blood is actually a good thing. Because without a soft rotation, Flesh and Blood would likely end up just like Yu-Gi-Oh! With a very big, robust ban list, as well as insane power creep with every new set in order to keep selling new cards. Now, the Living Legend system doesn't completely remove the use of a ban list or power creep, but hopefully it will allow LSS some more time and to implement these things slower than it might in a game like Yu-Gi-Oh! But that all being said, it is inevitable that Flesh and Blood will see a level of power creep and will need to ban cards as time goes on. But as long as we don't have whatever degenerate bullshit this is, I think we'll be okay. And on the flip side, you have a fully rotational system like Magic the Gathering has with its standard format. And I just gotta say, standard rotating formats are a steaming pile of hot garbage. Sure, the initial cost of your decks are cheaper than they are for Eternal formats. However, the moment that rotation hits, your cards lose 95% of their value, and now you're left with a worthless pile of cards, most of which aren't even playable in Eternal formats because they're just not powerful enough. And now you've got to spend another several $100 building the new deck from the new sets in the new standard format. Now, if you're only playing a game like Magic or Flesh and Blood for a year or two, this isn't that bad. But if you're big into trading card games and you're going to be playing these for 5 to 10 years, you will spend way more money on a standard format than you will on Eternal formats. Standard formats are also a perfect way to get people to quit the game. Most people aren't TCG fanatics, and so when their best deck is now suddenly completely unplayable because none of the cards are legal, they just leave the game. At least with the Living Legends system, a player can have their deck suddenly be no longer playable, they can leave for a few months, but then when a new hero gets brought into the game that has the same class and talent, they can just build that deck with all of the cards they've already owned. And while the Living Legends system does work as both a soft rotation and a bit of a safety valve, for instance in the case of Starvo, James does assure us that this is not the primary focus. In fact, he literally says, "To be clear, the primary way we intend to address degenerate card interactions and or metagames when they occur is through the banned and suspended list and not through heroes expedited to Living Legends status." Degenerate card interactions and metagames. James is based as fuck. I for one think this system is a happy medium between a full standard rotation and no rotation at all. It's not a perfect system, but any system made by human beings is not going to be perfect, and as James said, they are going to be tweaking it as the years go on. I still just can't believe that they got rid of Prism and they're leaving Rosetta Thorn in the format. Like, oh yeah, let the best girl go, but let's keep Briar of all things. Like, at least you guys gave us Dromommy.